Kiwi-Iranians are renewing calls for action, more action from our government. There is celebration among the community here. Dr. Forough Amin is founder of the Iranian Women in New Zealand. We've had it on the program many times before. Forough, lovely to have you back. Good morning.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
First of all, I know you've got family in Iran. I know you've got friends there. Have you managed to speak to any of them?
I've been able to talk to some of the friends. So I think it's a very, rapidly escalating situation, and obviously it's very stressful. But in the last 2 days, the biggest emotion, the biggest feeling for majority of Iranians have been that of joy and relief upon hearing the news of death of the dictator.
Can you kind of give me a sense, just been watching this footage like everyone else, this coverage, of what the split is in Iran between those who support the more hardline extremist, Islamic fundamentalist versus your more progressive who might support the royal family?
I think now it's completely clear. The supporters of regime are something around 10% of the population. And it can be based on the last election that the regime held around 2 years ago, that based on their own numbers, less than 20%, and we know that their numbers are not, they are engineered, but they show that less than 20% participated in the election. So I think Iranian people have long been fighting this regime, and now after 47 years of tries, they can see a window of opportunity open to them. And but it doesn't mean that we are certain that what the outcome is gonna be. But we need to understand that the biggest threat to Iranians has always come from this regime. And it might sound ironic, but for most Iranians, the fear from this regime is much bigger than their fear from foreign operations. Even most of Iranians have trust in Israel because Israel has proved to be the biggest allies for Iranians, Israeli government, and also people. And the interest of the two nations seems to be aligned.
You mentioned sort of the goal. Is that getting the Crown Prince basically back in charge?
For majority of Iranians, the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi, is the main figure for leading us through the transition period. And the plan is that, because the immediate question after the fall of the regime is stability and a smooth and safe transition. So he's a figure recognized nationally and internationally. He's the one who can unify people and who can prevent the vacuum of power after the fall. And that's why majority of Iranians are around him and accept him as the leader of transition. And he has a plan, he and his team, called Prosperity Project that was prepared around a year ago, which outlines a 3-stage roadmap actually for transitioning from this regime to a hopefully democratic Iran.
Forough, sometimes I wonder whether in New Zealand anyone actually cares what we think. When it comes to sanctions, when it comes to do we declare the Revolutionary Guard a terrorist entity, do we expel the ambassador? Do you think it really makes a difference?
Yeah, let me tell you something before answering that. Around a month ago, when the regime was killing Iranian people in the streets in Iran, many of us here in New Zealand, like Iranians anywhere in the world, so we had this deep feeling of pain and mourning for our country, and we were feeling lonely. Barely anyone contacted us to ask, how are you doing? And now it's really interesting that in the last 2 days, we received messages from friends, colleagues, journalists coming to us to check in. And we appreciate, of course, all this approaching, the community. But I'm talking about a pattern that shows that our solidarity, our empathy is mainly shaped by the ideological narratives, by media coverage. And it seems to be, morality seems to be selective. And I'm talking about the political parties and the so-called human rights activists who were silent last month when the massacre was happening, and now they are rushing to issue the statements condemning the strikes or even organizing protests in front of the US Embassy to support Iranians. And the fact is that during the massacre in Iran, they didn't support us, and even they were questioning us. They were questioning the authenticity of this revolution.
Why are they? I know exactly what you're talking about. Why do you think they're doing that?
I think it's obvious, as I said, the morality has become selective, This is hypocrisy there, that we support people and we support human rights only when it is aligned with our ideological
and our
framework.
political beliefs.
And as I told you, for Iranians, the national interest of this nation has been proved to be aligned with some of its neighbors and some of the countries in the region, Israel, that they don't like it. And that's why they prefer to be quiet about what happened in Iran. But in terms of the government, you know that it has been a long request from Iranian community since 2022 that the New Zealand government should designate IRGC as a terrorist organization and should close the embassy and expel the ambassador. And I think now it's the final time for the New Zealand government.
Literally the last chance.
Yeah, and to protect New Zealanders, we don't talk about supporting Iranians because IRGC is becoming a smash now there. But I think in order to prevent the members of the regime to come here and to prevent any terrorist attack to happen here in New Zealand, the government needs to take action.
All right, Forough, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Lovely to speak to you as always.